Hello, how are you this morning? Last couple of weeks, a lot of things happened, right? Also, the earthquake hit the Haiti, Haiti again, with the 7.2. Yeah, but and Taliban kind of take over the government in Afghanistan and was a hammering storm hit the northeast. So a lot of happening and a lot of people lost something and it's just hard to understand that something is going on. And think about it uh, in that moment it's yeah a lot of non-profit organization plug into ID again and try to help them out. And a lot of people are trying to escape from their home countries because of the political system that they don't like, and they want to have more freedom, right, in Afghanistan. And even though we don't do anything wrong and try to prevent the natural disaster, but every summer like this time and tornado kind of shake the countries and hurricanes shake the countries. So what about the west coast and earthquake is kind of hit the country, this area. And we cannot do anything, but whenever there's a hard disaster and some political issues and other stuff comes up, and who's gonna intervene in the situation and support the people who are struggling with their life? It's a government, right? And they collect the taxes and try to do a lot of different things for the welfares and support the companies and support the people who are struggling with their life, and then that's the government roles, right? And today we're gonna think about the relationship between government and economics. It's not easy because there's kind of mingled with the political systems and social structures and economics and all mingled together. Sometimes you cannot separate individually, but still influence each other. But nowadays, it's economic powers are contributing, kind of leading the whole things, right? If you don't have any economic power, you cannot develop the social structure. You cannot develop the political system, I think. I mean that depends on how you run the economics, and there is a political system is there and to support the economics and to lead the economics, right? So this morning, maybe I'm not going to talk about the religious system, but I'm going to talk about a little bit political system, and I'm going to talk about the economic system and how the government is influence on that structure, and then how, as a Christian, we can see how the Bible said, what Bible said about the government relate to the economics, right? But there is no many specific instruction, and we can get so we can get a big principle out of the Bible, and we can think about as a Christian how we react to government, respond to government policy and government executing their policy, right? here is government and economics, and then government set the economic rules like regulation, regulations, collect tax and then spend the money, right? And so the idea that they use public funds to provide the services and anyone and everyone should have an equal access to. That's the basic rules, what government is doing, right? And set the rules, rules for the game for everything else. Basically, try to set up the regulation and collect the taxes and run the government to support what? The public. And other industries, right? And this, by the setting the rules and regulation, government create the framework in which how they operate the market. And in turn, for example, and how they kind of control the interest rate, right? How they control the stock market. So sometimes, government said that, so by the regulation and rules, and don't do this one, right? And if you do that one, you're gonna get to pay the consequence of the breaking the rules and laws, right? Like this, and don't pay an employee less than the minimum wage. That's a violation. So, if you get underpaid and then you report to the labor department and the employer, and they get a penalty and some consequences of the breaking the law. What about don't put the toxins in a river and don't sell spoiled food, all kind of things, and nowadays in America, and that's by the law, and then that's against the law, but still they against, and then the consumer gonna sue the companies and sue the markets, and then eventually who regulate the suits and all things? The government, right? But everything is not visible, right? Sometimes we cannot see what government is doing behind us, invisible scenes. So we cannot see, but still influence on the society, influence on the companies, influence on the institution, right? Just think about it and how influence on the institution, private institution like Christian college, Christian schools, right? Even though they have their own philosophy, they're not educated the student in the way, but government still and challenging and push to open like a public school. One of them is sexuality, right? That's why, if you get some response from the government, and then that's the government said, if you don't do that, we are not going to support any. So think about if you go to public school, public college, and if you are not, if your family don't meet the criteria of the living standard, and then student who from the background get what? The government subsidies. It's not a scholarship, right? But even though they go to private school, still they can get the subsidies from the government, the part of that, right? And then, but private school, they impose their own tuition and living cost. A little bit different from the yes, public colleges. Yeah, but yeah, we gotta know that how the government give influence on institution and company, private company, even though it's big picture of economics and economies, even though we cannot see, right? And that's the government is doing something. So sometimes it's really positive, sometimes it's really frustrating, right? Uh, the degree, yeah, by the degree of the how, the government influence on the society or government individuals, and we can see three types of the economic systems. Yeah, we can categorize, right? Three types of economic systems. It's not, that's the review that we had, and then it's not so kind of a system, economic system, like there is no pure capitalism, there is no pure socialism and communism. Nowadays, communism is kind of getting decreased, and it's hard to, but still the theory is there, and then like critical theory and their philosophy's influence on the academics and peoples. That's why they still use that one, and they try to see the society with the theory. That's a theory. And here is the three kinds of the economic systems from the degree of the government involvement, right? And just think about what is the capitalism versus the individuals. Individuals own and operate the major business that provide goods and services and have a right to own and sell private property. That's the individuals, right? They have a right. You can own, you can sell, right? And what about the market? What about the socialism? There is no individual, right? And government owns and controls key industries. Not everything detailed, not everything, right? And private ownership of smaller business may be permitted, but major things like government controls, like in terms of the insurance, right? Health insurance, like that. What about the communism? Communism owns almost all of the economic resources, right? They don't allow the private, business, like the practice the strict control type of the socialism, right? It's a more control than this one. This socialism will be allows the private, right? But business, look at this, the three different kind of nowadays this is kind of decreasing after Soviet Union is dissolved, and but still they have and other communist countries, and they have ideology of the communism, right? But it's not like a pure communism, but they try to control the society, and they have a secret police, and they try to supervise everything by government. What about the market economy? Market economy and business and individual decide what to produce or buy. So market determines the quantity sold, and price depends on people demand a lot of things, and then they produce more. But there is scarcity of the product, and the price going up. and oh, this is really people are need and demand, and the company produces more and more, and there is a competition, so what? Price is going down. That's a capitalism, right? Demand and supplies. By the rules of the demand and supplies, and what? The price is decided. What about the socialism? Socialism is a little different, and it's command economy. Government decide what we produce and how we be produced and who gets what is produced and the price. Government decide. It's not the market, not by market, by the market, right? That is a different, totally different, right? What about the communism? Communism is almost same as a socialism, but emphasis is placed on the production of goods that the government needs rather than the what product consumer might want. Depends on the government's need, and they produce and they decide what price. So, like a communism is kind of totally controlled by government, almost. There is no kind of freedom, yeah? But nowadays, well, we can see some examples and which countries kind of capitalism and which countries are socialism and communism based on their economic system, right? Well, so there is no pure capitalism, but the U.S. economy is the modified capitalist or the free enterprise system with some government participation. Yeah, government controls some part, not everything, but less than the socialism. Give more freedom to the firms and individuals, right? Private. And what about the socialism? Yeah, visible socialism is present in many democratic governments, and most notably the high degree of socialism includes Sweden and Finland and India. The government, controls more than the capitalism, but not like a communism. Mostly, also the European countries based on the socialism. Well, we can see a little bit different, right? But whereas communism is so it has dwindled with the break up of the Soviet Union and economic reforms in China. But still, China is not like there's a communist country, but still they kind of reformed their economic system. So nowadays they allow like a private property, right? So, which country is most billionaires in the world? Billionaires? China. So in North Korea and Cuba are the best remaining example. The government controls everything. That's the kind of economic system that we can see basic direction or philosophy of the economic systems, right? So a little bit different is different, it's a little bit different from economic system, but sometimes we cannot separate with the social, what's a political ideology. And I'm gonna give just as a reference for the how social system is different from the economic systems, right? A little bit different. That side is the left side is like more socialism and communism, controlled by the government more. That side is kind of It's not all the time, but their tendency is more, what is that? And the traditional. Yeah, we already talk about those communists and socialists. What about the liberal? When you vote in America, there is a liberal party, right? That's a liberalism. Is a liberalism really, or their philosophy based on the liberty or consent of governed or equality before the law. So they are really support what is the individual right and civil right and human right and democracy, and they support secularism and freedom of speech and freedom of press and freedom of religion and market economy. And like liberalism is still capitalism, right? Based on the capitalism, it's a little bit different. Yeah, but try to replace the norm of kind of traditional privilege and state religion and absolute monarchy and what divine the right of the kings and traditional conservatism with what representative democracy. They try to take away the reform the like monarchy and then state religion and kind of religion ruled by the state, country and state. They want to separate, right? That is liberalism, but it's not more like give them more freedom, right? What about conservatism? This moderate level is kind of between here and whole this side and between is a kind of moderate. Conservatives and kind of political and social philosophy which respects for tradition and kind of limited federal government power in relationship with the state, right? Little bit based on the traditionalism, like a Republican, and democratic is more liberalism, and then little bit socialism. It's not a socialism, but still. And government is supposed to be a little bit limited and what? And in limited, right? They have a limited power on the and to influence on the private or individuals. But a little bit this goes with the traditional, like for example, in Democrats, they don't pursue the sexuality, right? Homosexuality. They still try to keep the heredity, right? Sexuality, like that's a traditional way that we educated and practice in society, but democratic is they allow this homosexuality. So there's a little bit different, right? What about the reactionary? Reactionary is the kind of just think about and compare it, people generate, people decade, right? From compare with the last decade and this decade, and maybe in 50s and 2000 and nowadays, and compare. And then they try to go back to kind of they have longing for the the past things, and then going back is past is better, right? They think that they're pursuing the going back. There's a reactionist, right? So just think about a lot of people just the parties change and and political government is changed, and then what? People are compared with the past and now. So in Korea, and then a lot of older generation, and then just think about 70s, 80s, and then the president Park Chung-hee, and then he ruled with kind of I can see a military power, and then it's not like almost dictatorship, but it's not like other countries. And then just think about the time, and we developed country, the Korea developed the country a lot in terms of economy, right? And they are the people really at the time, the generations really respected the what? Respect the president and family. That's why her daughter came later on, kind of elected as a president, and then she did not act good, right? And then she was sent to the jail, and then just a lot of people still remember what their family, what the president have done for the country, still have a remnants, and then they want to go back, like a reactionary. And so because Korean society, like American society, is a little bit polarized in little different ways, right? Oh, sorry. What about fascism is fascist is what? Really, really far right authoritarian ultra nationalism. Think about like a dictatorship, right? And autocracies, countries, and really they use the power suppressed to the people who against. Strong regiment of the society and the economy, right? That is one of the political ideology that we couldn't see, but maybe far this side is kind of has a government powers more, right? On economies and economics, and but what about the center is kind of and moderate and liberals and conservatives still they using the what? They using the capitalism, right? But it's not. This is not a socialism. Still, this socialism is still It's not pure socialism, but a lot of the European countries adopted socialism in practice. That is a political ideology that try to just to think about it, how related the economic systems. There is a little more pictures about a little bit detailed, and then communism and state capitalism, like capitalism and democratic socialism and social democracy and liberal capitalism and libertarianism. That is make broader categories and think about liberal capitalism and this is state capitalism and like China, and communism is like old ex-Soviet Union. What about the democratic socialism? Not yet, but they have ideologies there. But the social democracy is what? They run the what? Democracy, pursuing the democracy, but use the what? Socialism, adopted socialism a lot. But this one is a democracy socialism based on the socialism, but they try to apply to the democracy, but not yet here. But democracy socialism is about 10 years. Let's say Bernie Sanders, right? I don't know whether you guys he was a Democratic Party's candidate of the president, right? That is a little bit different ideology that not showing yet, but the liberal capitalism is England, it's UK and US, and then what about the libertarianism is not yet, but the ideology is there, right? Just try to compare how the government involved in economics, and then look at this, private ownership, communism is no, but China is limited by share of state and ownership of the firm, right? Some things they don't like and they shut down, right? What about democratic socialism? Only exists in non-controversial, some of them is give them the form, and some of them is like this, and then just think about it, and it's really ideas. So, and transition by new firms into employee ownership. Long time ago, it's kind of like Japanese, and then even though they're employee, but they have ownership kind of a spirit. But it's really, I don't know whether it could be. And just think about it, Amazon, and then it's a really big market and company, and just think about how they treat the employees, right? Can they have ownership? Is it possible? That's why they have a socialism idea, and but try to apply the democratic idea. But there is a social democracy and no limit. So you can get they allowed and no limit, but some employee owned and state owned it is still there. Just think about America and what state owns, and phone company and energy companies, and was sometimes was a road, right? Construction, and they did, and what they sell it to private. Then you can see fast tracks, and that's a private company owned. It's not a government owned, right? Maybe government owned the streets, you can see that one. How a difference. Like this, and then there is an employee owned and state owned firms is still there. But in social democracy, but liberal capitalism and low middle, but some employee owned firms still exist. We don't say they never, right? But still there. But mostly the business is for business state the government doesn't own, right? That's the difference in this one, liberal capitalism. And libertarianism, private owned everything, right? Just hands all guys get this one and run and has a free market, right? They try to do that. Just think about the markets. Oh my goodness. Think about the markets, and then economic activities are centrally planned and what? And controlled by the countries. What about the state capitalism? Markets are heavily regulated and state impose major entry barriers. Is it right? What about the democratic socialism? Mostly free, but government regulated extensively to avoid market failure. Just think about the stock market. Think about the what is it, like the COVID, the impact on the economic, by the COVID. There's maybe can be they try to but then the market is failed and it's a really big impact on the society, and they try to prevent stuff, right? It's just same as the social, the same idea about social democracy and the democratic socialism, but liberal capitalism like the U.S. and UK, minimalist the government regulation, try to minimalize, right? Minimalize the government power. The liberalism is what? Entirely unregulated. It's a little bit different, right? Yeah, we can see how it is different. Each, the political ideology and economic system, how run by the government, right? And this one is kind of ideology, but still it's hard to see. But even though we can categorize liberal capitalism, but we cannot fix the we cannot fix the characteristics of them. Sometimes there's a lot of different things, and then electrical, and then they put together with the other things and adopt it, right? One thing is that I want to know how they influence on the welfare. Just think about social service and public, and social service are public, right? To everybody, and then redistribution occurs at the firm level, not the government level, right? What about the social service are public, but the redistribution is minimal? So it's a little bit different, right? And what about the democratic socialism? Social services are public, and this one is kind of the democratic, and the communism is kind of a little bit shared their idea. What about the social democracies, kind of European countries? And social services, every social services are public to everybody, right? But large redistributive welfare state needed to alleviate inequality at the bottom level. Try to reduce the inequality in the bottom levels. There's like a healthcare, right? And that's a public, so, right? it's a little bit different, but just think about America's healthcare system. So when every time when there was an election period time comes, and then they issued about the healthcare, so related to welfare, right? But the liberal capitalism is only some social service of the public, not everything. And when they get public and when you get retired in around 65, there's some Medicare to everybody. But preference of the private provision and the minimal active redistributions. And so you gotta buy your own insurance, right? And if you really don't have it, just think about each state has their own health system for who cannot meet their criteria. We call California medical, medical. Yeah. That is a little bit different the social welfare, how they distribute, and right? And that's why sometimes when we see the countries, and then it's really hard for the people because of their basic ideology on politics and then economic systems. But at least when they have ideology, and then they try to run the society healthy and equal with equality, but there is no problem. But I don't think there is no there is such a equity and equality that we are expecting, like other people like BLM and require kind of a protest of inequality and inequities. But I don't know whether we can meet and we can have the equality that we are expecting. Yeah, maybe you guys have a basic idea about social democracy and democratic socialism. Just think about it. And this is a social democracy is based on the democracy. And this is a democratic socialism in what? So based on the socialism, but they adopt the democracy. Little bit different, right? Little bit different, right? Yeah. That one is like Bernie Sanders, and we have the democracy ideology, and try to kind of create a democratic and egalitarian outcome, and hindered by inequalities and poverty and oppression of underprivileged groups, and then they try to adopt this one. But this one is kind of a basic, they create a policy that hinder the curbs inequality and poverty, but recognize the issues are never fully resolved under capitalism, right? They know that the limitation of capitalism and acknowledge it, but they eventually believe that the society is getting worse and worse. But even though they expect like that, but still try to improve the society and develop the society, right? So they believe that eventually nowadays people are thinking about a lot of people are thinking about socialism. It seems like more opportunity for equality, equity, right? And all social benefits are going to others. How they practice, and government regulates some, was owned some business and was produce their outcome and then redistribute to the people. But liberal capitalism, just think about it. Government doesn't own many things, and then nearly own, and they have it's really hard, and then seems like it only runs by what? Based on the tax, right? Based on the tax. Yeah, so think about it, but it's not 100%, but still there. Some are there, but still basic policy, the direction of the policy and the philosophy is different. That's why it influence a lot, impact on society. The government's impacts on society a lot. Let's see, think about the democratic socialism. It's the benefit and disadvantage, and then what's the pros? And if we pursue the democratic society and socialism, and then we know that there is no perfect system, and we know that but still getting worse and worse, but still try to get kind of policy to be create to be equal and no oppression and no and inequality. But just think about the democratic socialism, and then what is a good? Try to be more equal society and reduce the poverty. I don't know that you guys have poverty levels, and then a lot of people are struggling with life. Some people chose the lifestyle. Some people work hard, but it's hard to meet their living standard because of their systems, because of sometimes environment that they are in. We cannot blame everything for the government. There is some personal responsibilities, but there is government responsibilities out there, right? For poverty. And regulate excessive the free market, and then free market externalities and monopolies and monopolies, and then they try to we had antitrust, and then we always concede, and sometimes Facebook face that antitrust, and then company try to monopolize, it's kind of monopolize, and then government examine and see that, and then they do something, and then they split, and they give them some limitations. What about the universal healthcare, improve living standard and labor productivities? That's pretty good. And promote common good and social welfare rather than the selfish aims. Always think about the ideology of the society. Equality, right? And freedom to everybody. And sorry. But there is cons is there, and we can have a lot of benefit if we have democratic socialism, but there is a con. You have to pay tax more. And nowadays about depends on how much you make, and then about 10% was a social security tax. Maybe when you get retired, then governments kind of return to you. But other than other taxes, and then they collect, and then they use it for public service, and then and all kind of they run the government, right? And for public and for the government. And just think about entrepreneurs, and then they want to make more profit. Always a company, right? More make a profit, and then if you stay in the country, and then labor is higher, cost is higher than other countries, and then kind of they move out. And sometimes tax havens kind of abroad in cheaper countries, right? Whereas that kind of just think about the welfare, and then provided by the government and the state, and then these incentive to work rely on, just think about homeless people, and they don't work, and still they have government support every month. We don't know how they use the money exactly, but still there. And there is an unemployed, during the COVID-19, and there's unemployed benefit, and then people sometimes they stay home. They can get more incentive from government than they work. They make, right? Just a little bit, a little bit different. So now people are really take advantage of the welfare systems, and then they don't work. And just think about who work really hard, and like middle class, and then they don't get any benefit from, but they barely make their own things, like pay everything, and no subsidies from government, especially for their children's education, and but they pay the tax high, but that's what they are struggling in getting, struggling. The middle class is getting decrease and decrease. And government failure in regulation or ownership of industry. And because we just think about, we adopted the capitalism that give them more freedom to run. What about the pollution? What about the environment issues? What about the employer issues? All kind of stuff, right? Excess labor market regulation can be lead to less employment, and structural employment. But you don't have to work, right? That's why I heard, I don't know how much is true, but the European society, their welfare system is kind of breaking down little by little. They adopt a lot of people from other countries for their labors, right? People don't work like a hard job, and then they kind of accept immigrant for the work, and then but sometimes they come to the country and struggle their life and rely on the social welfare system, and then That's why. The powerful union causes antagonism between workers and owners, and union is kind of power between. I don't know. Sometimes it's really sometimes you work for it's really good for the employee, but sometimes they need to think about the whole economics and then how companies are doing. So there is kind of there is no trust relationship, right? There is one of the example, the democratic socialism and then United States unfederal capitalism, like a liberal capitalism. We don't know which system is better, but there is a number is here. Look at this, and then poverty rate is about 10%. It means that this government involved a lot and regulate a lot, right? But poverty level is 29%, and life expectancy is 81.7 years. But the life expectancy is 79.6 years, a little bit shorter. What about the infant mortality? 2 per thousand births, about 5.7 per thousand births, almost triple. What about incarceration? How many people are in jails? 100,000. 74 per 100,000. But what? Almost 10 times, right? More than 10. 860 out of 100,000. What about the GDP? Grocery, domestic profit is about it's about 75,000 per person. Almost 59. What about the 70% workers protected by the union, but only 11.3 workers are protected by union? So there is like my wife works in the county, and then she has a union, right? They are underpaid, and then compared with the other companies, and then the union fight with the state. They are underpaid. You gotta kind of catch up this much. But government, they pay a little less, but they have a lot of benefit. And they raise the wage, but they cut the benefit nowadays. A little bit different. Like this. And then ranks the second happiest country is the 14th. What about the free universal healthcare? Unpaid insurance based on healthcare. Free, right? We gotta pay for it. And insurance, we gotta, some, it's not, some, like medical, and we are really don't meet the standard of living, and California government and support, and you don't have to pay anything, right? There's special things, but not the whole. What about the higher education? Free higher, no education, tuition, but expensive higher education. So if you go to public school, it's about, like here in UC, around 15 to, I don't know exactly, I heard around 15,000 per year. If you go to Cal State, it's half of the UC. But if you go to private college, tuition is about almost 60,000 per year. Quadruple or triple and quadruple. Little bit different. But here's a free education. What about the financial security for senior? Yes, but no. That's why even though you are old and you cannot retire, they have to work to get the more social security, right? If you are not ready for, if you don't prepare for your retirement personally. What about the 83% home ownership? So what about the 63% home ownership? What about the living wages as a minimum? What about the poverty wages as minimum? Eight weeks paid vacation per year? Wow. No paid vacation per year. But depends on the company. My wife is start with the 2 weeks. And if 2 weeks and then depends on how long you work there and then 3 weeks and 4 weeks and 5 weeks, that's the maximum, right? A little bit different. But even though if she got the 5 weeks, compared with this one, it's a little bit different. Totally different, right? But if you go to other companies like ethnic companies, 3 days and 2 days, and then sometimes you can use a whole week, but you cannot take a whole week vacation and you got split and like this. It depends on. What about 35 weeks paid parental leave? Okay, I have I'm gonna expecting June and 35 weeks, and after delivery and they gave birth to baby, and then still you can almost half a year, more than that, 2/3 of the year, and you can stay before and after, right? Delivery. But non-paid parental leave, and then sometimes maybe 1 month, 2 months, and then you gotta buy your own things. So nowadays, I don't know how you change, how the company, the government changed, but you gotta prepare for your own. So for our case, we had to buy insurance, and then when she leaves on work, and then from work, and then she got got the money from the insurance company. So we gotta buy before. But average personal tax rate is what? 38% to 52%. The average tax rate is at 37%. Not that much difference, but think about the different numbers compared with the United States with Norway. Basically, the country based on the socialism, right? Democratic socialism, but this one is what? Based on the capitalism. When you compare with the two countries, which one is better for people? If you have a lot more money, and then this is better for you. Because less regulated by government. You don't have to pay less, right? Tax less. Not that much difference, but so we believe that even though government we don't meet our expectation from the government, still government try to good for the public and for the people. Right? That's our expectation, and protect from enemies, and then just think about, right? And try to minimize inequalities and provide public goods, right? And if you go to park and kind of they develop a nicer park and whoever afford time and come to the park and enjoy. Just think about it. Who can enjoy the time at the park? If we don't have basic, if we don't meet the basic need, and they don't have time to come. If they have excessive, but they don't come to park. They go to other countries, right? So try to protect the market, not to fail. What about and try to stabilize the economies and then protect their own countries, right? And that's why sometimes the government wants to protect their countries, and then there's a trade war, right? And what about the national defense? They have to defend their country, their people from enemies, right? What about the regulated labor markets? And like the United States, and then they try to set the minimum payment and not exploit the laborers, but still there is not enough for the minimum pay. Minimum pay is not enough for the people who live here. Just think about if you make $15 per if you make $15 per hour, but I don't know how many people are getting $15 per hour. Just think about if you get a salary $15 per hour, how much will it be without tax? It's around 2,500, right? It's not that much. What are protection from the environment? Give them company a little bit regulation, not to pollute waters, airs, and like this. But sometimes they fail, and then what is it? Lake or it's polluted, and air quality is really bad, and then all kind of stuff. But maintain laws and orders, but they are kind of they supposed to do that, right? When society, the government is healthy and everything is smooth and there is no equality, there is no prejudice, and there is no favoritism. Everybody is equal under the law. But how many societies like that? I don't know how many people are come here and how many you guys, when you guys stay in your country, you feel like I'm always fair, treated by the government, treated by the society. Not really. Nowadays, people talk about diversity. I don't know what is diversity mean by the people who are talking about. A lot of cases they don't embrace the diversity. They are different. Everybody is different, but they said, oh, we need diversity and we have to inclusive, but not really though. So my daughter struggled a lot during the college years. Because the social economic status, economic status different. Social status, we are okay, economic status different in this society. Our family are really well educated, but it's not all about it. Just think about American society. Not the education, but how much you have. How much? look at the government rules is collect the producers and collect the tax and then government spending and road and some services, right? Phone makers, goods and service, and just think about consumers pay the tax. When you buy something, you pay the tax. Some of them, government. They instead they got to pay the tax and they got some benefit, right? When you are in hard time like COVID-19 and you are qualified with the criteria, you can get some subsidies from government like this. And then if you but if you meet some criteria, you can benefit for your health insurance like this, and they provide some benefits. So individual households purchase a good and service, right? They pay the tax, and then every year you have to report the income tax, right? So actually, government collecting taxes and spending on public service and goods and regulate the whole system in society. That's an economy is going on, right? Economics. Okay, that's we talk about the kind of political systems and economic systems and what was the government role and how the economic system is different from each other, and then we compare it to the one of the European countries in America. So I don't know the countries, maybe China or Korea and other countries, and just think about it, what kind of social system the country has and what kind of economic system they have, right? More socialism or more capitalism. What about and how does the Bible say about the authority institution for Christians? So let's see the biblical perspective on the authority and institution there. Romans chapter 3, 1 to 6, we're gonna read, and then here is based on this one. We're gonna talk a little bit later, but let's read. Talk about Bible said in Romans 13, 1 to 6. Let every person be subjected to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. So every authority from God, and those that exist that have been instituted by God, right? Sometimes they are non-Christian and they are the secular institution, but Bible said that ultimately it's from God, and God in the whole the purpose and plan of God, and God is running that one. They said, therefore, whoever resists the authority resists what God has appointed. Those who resist will incur the judgment, right? So based on this verse, and a lot of Christians, and then they really submissive to government, whether they had bad, like killing people, they never thought speak their voice out about that. But rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but too bad. This is one of your government that should do that, right? They punish the bad and compensate the good. They do what is good, and you will receive his approval, right? For he is a God's servant for your good. government is a God's servant. Think about it. They are not Christians and they don't have any, they totally against God. How you think about it? You believe that? Maybe God used the system and God used the people because God, when Israelites, didn't obey to God, didn't listen to God, and God raised neighbor countries and punished the Israelites. And then when they got punished and then they got hard time and they remember God and come back and repent with repentance. What about instrument that way? Maybe we could think that way. Think about it. If you do wrong, be afraid, but he does not bear the sword in vain. Well, he is the servant of God and avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoers. What about now is to think about society. You are very pure and you are innocent. You follow the law. But government doesn't do anything to those who oppress you and do bad things to you. Sometimes they raise a hand to the bad side. Criminal cases, some lawsuit. What do you think? I don't know how the government, how strict the government apply the law to everybody. We're in equality, with equalities. Therefore, one must be in subjection not only to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of the consciousness. Right? Consciousness. For because of this, you also pay taxes for the authority on ministers of God and attending to His very tiny things. God is good. God is love. God is justice. Right? What if the government that not justice, not just? They favor some groups. They don't think about who don't have power. That's really, when you read this scripture policies and then government is supposed to do good and maintain a good society, right? But nowadays, laws here, they interpret differently, and then there's no power. A little bit cynical, skeptical of your government, but still, we can have a lot of benefit from the government, but we can talk about later. But Bible said that, Rome, the authority for government is supposed to punish the evildoers. It is a minister of God and avenger brings wrath on the one who practices evil. That's why we put the law, we incarcerate a lot of people. They violate law. They kill someone, right? That's government's roles. And then Romans 13:3 is mentioned that the government positive roles, so do what is good, and you will have praise from the same authority. Right? Do good. So we have a lot of social benefits from government, right? I don't know how much what degree the government try to protect the weak from the people, those have a power. Yeah, First Peter 2 and 13 and 14 says, submit yourself to for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether to king or one in authority, or to governors as sent by him for the punishment of the evildoers and praise those who do right. Right? That's the rules of government. Rules of government. The Bible said, protect his people, right? Do justice, execute justice. But Matthew 22nd, 20 to 22. That is about the people, Herod and Pharisees came to Jesus and tried to kind of test Jesus Christ and accuse Jesus Christ, right? And they said, asked, okay, do we have to pay to tax to Caesars? Just say, if we say no, don't pay the tax to Caesars, and then what? They're gonna say, town government, and then Jesus gonna kept accused against the law, against the government, right? And that situation, Jesus knows their heart, and Jesus said, he said, bring the coins, and then he shows, and he's talking about like this, and then here is that. Whose likeness and inscription is this? They said, Caesar's. Then he said to them, Jesus said to them, therefore render to Caesar's the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. When they heard of it, they marveled, and they left him and then went away. What do you think? It's a good answer? If I were there, and I'm going to ask, I would ask, what is the God's? What is the Caesar's? Bible said that everything belongs to God. Right? What's the Caesar's? What's the God's? Have you thought about it? Here's a Tim Keller said, and then this is the very first theory of the limited government in the history of the world. Give Caesar the money because it is his money. He printed it, but don't give him the evidence. What Jesus Christ is saying there is, you may give Caesar some of what he wants, right? What he wants, tax, but which is his money. But you cannot give Caesar ultimately what he wants, which is a completely accept his system of corruption, his system and injustice, and his system of exclusion. So you gotta follow that law. But you cannot give him the what? Elegance. Always, and God is above the basic secular system. Tim Keller said it. He's a really prominent pastor and theologian. Yeah, just think about it. Uh, we can give the basic, yeah, we can give the tax and for the government, but what about he said, what about coercion and injustice and exclusions, really vicious social systems? He said we cannot give him that, right? So we cannot follow that. That is his view. And we can see another verses, yeah, and John 19:11, and when Jesus Christ accused and then what? The high priests and scribes and then leaders and then what? Landed in Jesus, yeah, rendered Jesus Christ to Pilate. And Pilate, yeah, here when Jesus Christ was standing before Pilate, Jesus acknowledged Pilate's authority over him, and he said, you would have no authority over me unless it has been given you from above. Just think about it. This one is Jesus Christ's authority is a political authority there, but Jesus Christ's authority is higher than the political authority. That's the one way of principle that we should remember, right? Well, first, yeah, Timothy 2:1 to, yeah, wants to say that, yeah, Paul said to Timothy, I urge that prayer be made for the kings and all who are in authority. Why? Because, yeah, in order that you may live a tranquil and quiet life in godliness and dignities. So just pray for them without any, and the government runs to the justice and injustice, and then they're gonna serve the public, and then what? You're not gonna lose peace. You're not gonna be disturbed by that, the evil behaviors, right? And then that's why you can live what? Tranquil and quiet life in godliness and dignity to everybody. Peaceful life, and you can serve God. But scholar J.P. Moreland said this passage calls for prayers to sustain stable social orders in which people can live peacefully and quietly without fear of harms. Right? So you don't want to make any troubles and just pray for that one. But your heart is disturbed by the injustice, inequalities, and poverty that manipulated by government. I don't know whether you guys have heard of the poverty industry. Who's the controls behind? Who can run the company, provide all things that the poverty provided to the poverty, the poor? Now just think about poverty industry, and who is for the industry for poverty? It's for poor people, it's for rich people. Who pay for it? Beneficiary cannot pay for it, government pay for it. Whose money is that one? Government money, so whose money? Like in America. Your money, tax money, right? Yeah, we read this one. Try to teach that what the government role is about. The government provides all three justice and protection. And governments are to act on behalf of the good of the all people, right? Protect the good people and what? To the good people and punish the evildoers, right? Government creates social space for the display of good conduct. So encourage people what do good and discourage people what do bad, right? So eventually, and government opens service to sanctify Christians and then try to not disturbed and by the not angered by the injustice and you can be really tranquil and quiet life. The Christians usually do respect and honor the government leaders, right? Right? We believe that. It's from God used them. But be subject to the government and obey its law. We try to do that. And pray for the civil leaders. We try to do that. Right? And pay taxes, we do. Basically, we do all things that government wants to us, and then it's not a big deal, right? We know how they use the tax, but what if the civil government is doing wrong and unjust? This is nowadays kind of conservative Christians. No, they don't want to involve and they want to voice out and just follow the government, regardless what they doing, what they have doing bad things to the people. They don't think about it. But always there is kind of even though sometimes government God used the wicked countries, not their own people, the other countries and who are and serving the other gods, but the reason is that to wake up his people, right? So Romans 12:19, Paul said to Romans, just think about Romans, they went through a lot of persecutions by Nero's and the city as a whole, the city burned and blamed for Christians, blame Christian for that and then persecuted a lot, They throw into the wild animals and then burned them. It's really wicked, right? And Paul said, beloved, never offend yourselves, but leave it to a wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Vengeance is mine is like 31 times in the Bible came out. And if you read the Old Testament, and then at that time, still there's a kingdom is there, but there's a real system is there, and kingdom system is there, and then what? Prophet came out. God used the prophet, and then rebuked a lot of the wrongdoing of his people, kings and religious leaders and political leaders and public, the ordinary peoples, right? So what do you do then? If you read the Bible and then there is a kind of civil disobedience, we say, okay, we all submit to what's a government and authority. It's from God, instituted by God. And then, but when you read the Bible and you consider and the people, in the midwife against the Romans, king's order, right? And they told the midwife, and then once the Hebrew people are growing, then they want to control the population, and then they told the midwife, and if you if you go and get the boy and then kill them, if the girls and let them alive. But midwife lied to authorities. They helped the people, right? Because the midwife feared the God and What about Joshua 2? Rahab. She's not a Christian, and the Jericho, right? And she lives in Jericho, and then she hid the spies, the Israel spies, right? They want to spy out the Jericho, and then but they know it, and they hid her actives, and then escaped. She lied against the authority. So you can see a lot of people and some more cases and of their civil disobedience, disobedience, and you can see in 1 King 18 and you can see the Obadiah who feared the Lord greatly, and when Queen Jezebel was killing the God's prophet, and Obadiah took 100 of them and hid them, right? So against what? Government, authorities. Daniel too. He exiled to Babylon and what? He said, if you pray to God and what? You're gonna throw into the lion's den and kill. But Daniel willing to do that. Okay, I wanna be thrown into the lion's den, and he did. And when he had a lot of fatted and then good food and provided the government, the authority, and then he said, oh, I'm gonna eat this vegetable, right? And then they allowed. Peter, I know he's not at the time, and in Jesus' time, and then he said he preached the gospel, and then the religious leaders and caught them and don't do that. If you do that, and we're not going to forgive you. And he said that we must obey God rather than the man, and he's not going to stop the preaching the gospel. But another book is the last one is the Revelation, where the Antichrist commands all those who are alive during the end times to worship the image of himself. But the Apostle John said, who wrote the Revelation, all the way the last book of the Bible, and stated that those who become Christian at the time will disobey Antichrist and government and refuse to worship the image. And just as Daniel, so companies violate Nebuchadnezzar's decree to worship his idol, right? That is, just think about it. Even though God gave us authority to command us to through the Paul and commanded the authority submit to authority and institution, but still there is a cases that not real. Just remember that what Jesus Christ said, and John 12:11 said, you have no authority over me. So think about our authorities. How can you do that when the authority is doing bad and injustice and doing bad, right? How to respond? Can you get idea about from some Bible that we are already read? How can we voice out? How can we respond? From the Daniel, we can get one principle there. We can protest. We can speak, voice out what we want to do. But what do you want to do? It's not violent way. Daniel did fight against the authorities. Right? That's one of the ways. So Christians should resist the government that command or compel evil, and you should work non-violently within the law of the land to change the government permits evil. So a lot of things are doing, governmental crime. You don't know behind. A lot of things going on. But we didn't see that. That's why we don't say anything. Sometimes our value is not comparable with the governmental values. But still, they don't say anything. They don't voice out non-violently. Civil disobedience is permitted when the governmental laws and commands are in direct violation of the God's law and commandment. Right? But nowadays a lot of Christianity and Christian leaders, and they compromise with the government law, and then they follow their one, right? That's why they are split. Think about the homosexuality issue, and then because of that, and church are divided. Some are follow the death law, and conservative Christians, and that's against God's word. But some people understand indifferent, they follow them. What about the North Korea? What about the country have ruled by the dictators? A lot of life sacrificed and a lot of suffered by the dictator. If Christians disobey an evil government, unless he can flee from the government, then what he can do it? So think about when you disobey because it's not right, and you gotta take the consequences. He should accept the government the punishment for his actions, whether it's justice or not. Just think about government is not justice, but as a Christian, you take willingly. Take willingly. That is one of the consequences that, so long time ago in Prophet, and sometimes they got, pushed away from their community. Sometimes they got humiliated by people and like that. Christians certainly permitted to work to install new government leaders within the law that have been established. But nowadays, the society getting secularized, and then they try to get away from, I know we need to separate state and from the religion, and then, but still, they wanna, they wanna, if you are Christians nowadays in America, it's not easy. Why? So if we can do it, and then we can permit it to work to install the new government leaders within the law. So usually, whether the law is wicked, and then actually the law is for the society and for the people, right? But they misused it, and sometimes law is there, but government they abuse their power. They don't follow the law, and whenever they need, and they create a new rule, law and rules, right? So always we gotta, under the law, by the law, we can do it. So lastly, Christians are commanded to pray for their leaders and for God to intervene for his time to change the ungodly path that they are pursuing. Right, we already read, 1 Timothy 2:1 and 2, right? There's a basic guideline that we are thinking about, but a lot of people don't agree with that one, so it's okay. But one thing you gotta know that, and why God kind of acknowledged the authority of the authority of the government, and acknowledge the authority, right? There's a clear reason, and we can see there's a lot of in Old Testament and New Testament, and sometimes they against the what? Authorities command, right? Well, nowadays, we are really think about human dignities, and we really love others who are suffering from the unjust system and unjust government and unjust dictator. So what can we do? Okay, my life is convenient here because we have economic power, and we have a comfortable life here. We don't mind. Can you have a kind of attitude as a Christian? Your brothers and sisters are suffering because of the unjust economic system, unjust political systems. What can you do? I know a lot of different views of this civil disobedience, and I already told you there's a traditional view, just whatever they do, just follow. Sometimes you support the evil government, just you follow, without saying anything about their wrongdoing. But the other side is kind of, even though it's not violent, non-violence, with non-violence, we willing to pay the cost, and we gotta speak out within the law, right? Within the law. So a lot of people, you can see they are not Christians, and they are, some of them is Christians, and what? They're violent. I think that's not biblical. Think about the Daniel. I know they don't have power at the time, but still, they don't use kids, And Peter, when Jesus Christ was about to the tithe by the authority, and Peter said, take out what? His javelin, and cut the sword, and cut the one of the servant of the leaders, right? And Jesus Christ healed and put together a bag, and then healed, and they don't do it. If you use the sword, and you're gonna perish by the sword. That's one of the examples. But that's why Jesus Christ willingly gave himself to the authority. He's not against the authority, right? A little bit different, but he didn't any violent show. He didn't show any violence to the authority. But he did it sometimes. When he went to the temples, and he turned over the law. This is a religious system. It's not a political economic system, right? But it's related to authority. Okay, just think about injustice in economies, and poverties, and then oppression, and critical theories out there, and then a lot of things going on. But what is our perspective as a Christian? Just think about it, and if you really wanna read more, and then you can type it, and then you can get a lot of information though. There's a practical one, some of the academical one, and then still debating. That's what I found. What I shared is kind of how to respond to unjust government and civil disobedience. That one is kind of I agree with, and that's why I share with you guys. There's a traditional one that my church is following their way, but still I respect them. But I have a different point of view about that one, but they don't agree with me, right? Okay, if you have any question, and I'm willing to open to discuss. But it's not easy topic, that one. So, just know what kind of economic system rules in your society. Maybe if you are in American society, you gotta know, and then if you are in another society, and then you gotta know them, and how influential you guys, and what you need to do, and just think about as a Christian. Okay, and still we don't have nothing much, but it's really weird nowadays, and we got rain this August and September. It's really surprising, and then no, not September. Usually no rain in August and July, but we had rain. It's really surprising yeah, something, yeah, weather is kind of changing, and yeah, kind of, I feel like daytime is really humid and hot, but nighttime is really cold, and kind of difference of, yeah, temperature is big, so temperature difference is big, so I hope that you guys take care of yourself, and then corona kind of, yeah, cases kind of increase a lot, so I hope you guys take care of yourself well, right? Okay, and have a great week, and we have one more week about how can we help the people who are really in need, right? Next week. So relate to the kind of how can we participate in poverty, like that. Okay, have a great week.